Catholic worshippers are mourning around the world. Michael Higgins is the Vice Chancellor Emeritus at St. Jerome's University at the University of Waterloo. He wrote a biography on Pope Francis. It was titled The Jesuit Disruptor, and he joins us this morning with the latest. What a title. How did he earn that title from you, and what do you find yourself thinking about him this morning?
Well, first of all, I'm a bit surprised that he has died. I mean, I commented earlier in some media context that I anticipated that he would not live throughout 2025. But he is always the Pope of surprises. Wonderful in a sense, symmetry in that he dies within hours of the feast of the Resurrection. That one of the last things he did was again to speak to the people from the Apostolic Loggia. It was one of the first ways in which, of course, he became familiar to the Catholic and indeed the non-Catholic world when he was first elected Pope. He was a disruptor Pope in many ways. He disrupted the way people thought of the papacy. He disrupted the priorities of the papacy. He disrupted expectations around how a pope will articulate and navigate the church in turbulent waters. And he was the first pope who was a Jesuit. Hadn't happened before. He was the first pope from the global south. He had been Archbishop of Buenos Aires in Argentina. And he was the first pope who really did not have, in recent time, didn't have any extended experience in the Vatican or in Rome itself. He wasn't a graduate of one of the pontifical universities. He wasn't a dicasterial cardinal in that he worked directly with one of the departments in Rome. And that actually, interestingly, not ironically, was one of the things that appealed to the cardinals who elected him.
I want to take a look and have a discussion about the future of the church in just a moment. But if we can for a moment to reflect on the life that he lived, 12 years as a pope on this earth, I think what has stood out this morning is the examples, the things that stood out to them about how he demonstrated this disruption that you were talking about. And one of the stories that was relayed this morning was the fact that he installed showers in St. Peter's for the homeless there, and he hired a barber to give them haircuts. What are some of these concrete examples that stand out to you that make you think that's the hallmark of who he was?
One of the things that struck me over the years going to Rome, but particularly when I was there covering the synod for a publication in New York City, the synod that was held just last October, was in the evening, he had instructed the Cardinal Almoner, who was responsible for dealing with the poor in the Roman precincts, and elsewhere for that matter, to make sure that people were accommodated. They moved into that area around the porticos, the big pillars that constitute the Bernini colonnade, and people moved into there to settle down for the night. And you would see on several occasions in which his own personal expression of concern for the poor and the disadvantaged was palpable. You saw it at the very beginning of his pontificate, because rather than flying to Argentina or flying to some part of Italy, his first trip was to Lampedusa, which is also part of Italy, but an island off the coast, which was accommodating large numbers of African migrants who were fleeing from North Africa. And he met with them. And this set a pattern of being available, of being attentive, of being with a companion with others, rather than simply a monarch somehow removed from their lives, articulating various nostrums about how to live their lives. He accompanied their lives. And I think this is one of the reasons why throughout the Catholic and the non-Catholic world, he has been such a popular figure.
You've previously written about the desire within some factions of the church's leadership to eventually replace Pope Francis with someone who is more traditional, someone more orthodox. What could that mean for the direction of the Catholic Church and where it goes from here?
I don't think, just as a point of clarification, I don't think that they need to find anyone more orthodox. The Pope was, in fact, quite orthodox. But what I think they're going to try and do is kind of stabilize the image, if you like, the style. There are many Catholics who were drawn to Francis, and there was a small group, but vocal and influential, that found his style off-putting. In other words, he wasn't sufficiently regal. He wasn't sufficiently papal. He was inclined to be too familial, too informal, and to speak off from the top of his mouth. He loved to scrub when he was on a plane, and he particularly valued the insights of journalists. Well, some didn't like that, so they wanted a pontiff who assumed the august role of the leader of the Roman Catholic Church in ways that Francis was uncomfortable with, number one. Number two, the Pope's priorities were different than the priorities of, indeed, some of the cardinals that originally elected him. And that was that he established the pastoral and the immediate challenges of people living in the world over doctrinal formulations or canonical rules. He didn't dispense with these. He changed no doctrine. He didn't overturn canon law. He didn't do the kinds of things that perhaps some wished that he had. But what he did do was to redefine papal leadership in a way that was more pastoral and more tangible and more attractive.
And as we're learning this morning, those plans and that methodology all the way through will carry all the way through to his burial. Michael Higgins, great to speak with you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.